Over 200 people have lost their lives and more than 2,000 have been arrested in one of the deadliest weeks in post-democratic South Africa. President Cyril Ramaphosa describing the violence as a well-planned assault on the country's democracy. For more on the story, we're joined by National Assembly Speaker Lechesa Tsenoli. Dade Tsenoli, good evening to you and thank you for your time. Firstly, the views of Parliament on what the President has described as an insurrection and an attempt to undermine democracy in this country.
We agree fully with the President, but let's also agree first, Kathy, with this expression of regret that so many people have had to die for reasons, quite frankly, that are not on at all. And this is in addition to the reality that we are in the middle of a terrible pandemic that is also taking lives. And so we are sad that, in fact, we have had to, people have had to go through this kind of development. Firstly, there is no question on assessing what we are seeing. This is now just independently looking at what's developing, not to notice how it is orchestrated, organized, and intended to be absolutely disruptive of the country as a whole. And so we want to express our full support to communities that have said, no, we can't allow this. We must dissuade these people from doing what they are doing, the organizers themselves, but also people who are being caught into this without knowing and without even accepting the reasons for why this thing was called in the first place. So we are sadly having to deal with tragic consequences of bad miscalculation about what was expected to happen as a result of these interventions. We are hoping that late as the intervention perhaps started by the security cluster, generally speaking, that the time in which they have entered into intervening and are making huge progress in arresting, identifying, and pursuing those who are behind this will be a successful one. What is also saddening, Kathy, is that many people have had to miss their turn to be vaccinated, thus rendering them vulnerable to COVID-19, when in fact they could already be part of those who are vaccinated and so on. So the return urgently or into operation of possibilities for vaccinating as many people as possible to make up for the lost time, in any case, for a variety of reasons, appear to me as one of the priorities we must undertake.
Dade Tsenoli, one of the things that you as a Parliament are going to be tasked with is the issue of accountability. And you've just touched on it, which is the late response of our security cluster to what fundamentally is a question of national security. Our security as a nation was under threat, and by and large, the security cluster seems to have been sleeping on the job. How are you going to hold them accountable?
Well, Kathy, in the first place, our priority is to ensure that we do what needs to be done urgently now to return, as I said, in my opinion, the vaccination campaign, the health infrastructure to be returned to at least operational basis, including that which we can put into place. The priority ought to be there, so that we increase the speed with which we not only, of course, having to hold the executive accountable is an important part, but part of the solution is also our own contribution to creating an environment in which we can be assured and can assure people in our neighborhoods that things will be done, and we must step in ourselves as citizens in every neighborhood to bring conditions into normal. That, for me, is the priority. Parliament, because, for example, right now we are in recess, and we are acting in a variety of areas and places to work with people to help them deal with the problems. The question you are raising is of necessity going to come up in the work that's going to be done by clusters of committees, by committees individually, and so on. But, Kathy, when we read some of the budget review recommendation reports that we have just gone through, there were indications there of requests for additional funding, which unfortunately many of them, especially in the security cluster, raised questions about their underfunding and how that underfunding is critical and may lead to problems if it is not arrested. So it's a combination of those issues and others that will arise about what other factors led to these delays and how we can ensure that in future we are disaster ready of all kinds. And when we say disaster ready, we don't mean just this kind of ones that we've just gone through. Even previously, there are other different disasters that often take place. And if the state and its machinery is not ready and is not appropriately funded, we will not once more cope with this problem. So this is what conversations we will have with the state at variety of levels.
Ntate Tsenoli, you've spoken about the fact that Parliament is currently on recess. We have a state in this country, again going back to the President saying that there was an insurrection attempt that did not fail. There was a plan, an orchestrated plan to destabilize that country. Is that not reason enough to reconvene Parliament on an urgent basis?
The most urgent priority I have outlined, Kathy, Parliament is both a deliberative platform, sitting together in some place in the assembly so that we get to grips with things fully. But there is another role of Parliament, such as we are doing right now in various parts of the country, to be available to people, to work with people in support of them, including the police, including the security infrastructure of the state, providing active, present support. That's important parliamentary work, because coming back to do what you're suggesting is naturally what is going to be absolutely critical. And it must be informed not just by answers that we get from people who are going to be coming there, but also to be able to reflect on our own observations of what we have seen, what we have interacted with, what we can generate and bring into those discussions. So it is an important process.
So here's the difficulty. Yeah, here's the difficulty, Ntate Tsenoli. If some of the reports are anything to go by, and even the President alluded to this in the address that he gave over the weekend, that this is not over. We are not out of the woods just yet. We don't know what else is being planned and when this plan, this phase 2, will be unleashed on the people of South Africa. Is that not reason enough for government, for Parliament rather, to be getting together and providing very solid and clear, not just leadership, but also accountability in this moment?
Yes. Kathy, why should we, I'm going to speak in a way that I would under any circumstances. Why should we leave the trenches? To leave people alone to deal with what we say we don't know is yet to happen, is likely to continue to happen. Why shouldn't we be with people where it matters most, to be able to continue to support them in their defense of their neighborhoods, in the defense of the infrastructure, generally speaking? Holding people accountable will happen. There is no way. This is why we will act and act decisively in order to improve these matters. Meetings are crucial, but meetings must be as a result of practical work that's been done, that assessment that is being done by people active on the ground will bring to those discussions. It's an important activity. I'm not underestimating the requirements for us to meet and consider what's happening. It is necessary, for example, that the Joint Committee on Defense met recently to receive a report from the Department of Defense about the deployment of soldiers in the country in an appropriate manner. So that meeting took place already. So what it means is that similarly, we will find an opportunity to do similar interactions at critical points around the health and social infrastructure related issues, so that we prioritize things with the most impactful requirements on the ground where it matters most. There is no question of us meeting and having meetings in the way, for example, we've been doing them virtually and so on, to be able to do those activities. It is possible for some of these activities to be subjected to meetings as you suggest, but this will be on the basis of an assessment that Parliament is making, meaning listening to every other people involved inside Parliament, not only to one part of Parliament, but listening to and hearing others and what they are saying to us, so that when we do meet, as the situation demands that we do, to do accountability and so on, we do so informed by the support we are giving to people to deal with the problems that they are confronting, where they live, where it matters most, where infrastructure is, and people need to at least receive ability to have access to people who can communicate their issues to the relevant authorities. And once we go back to go and meet, we will be having those discussions in an informed and decisive manner. Those meetings will take place. There's no question about it.
Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Lechesa Tsenoli.